Hey guys, and welcome to episode 91 of the OCDstories.com podcast. Now, in this episode, I interviewed Aneela Kumar. I had the good fortune of meeting Aneela at the ISDEF conference in San Francisco this year. And I wanted to get her on because I'm all for technology and how that can boost the effectiveness of therapy and recovery. So she, along with her husband, has created a smart sort of bracelet watch type thing called Keen, and the company is called HabitAware. And what it does is it's aimed at sort of trichotillomania and dermatillomania, so compulsive hair pulling or compulsive skin picking. And it's about every time you go to do that action, whether it's pulling your hair, your eyebrows in Aneela's case, and she gets into her story, or even something like picking your nose or picking the skin off your lip. As soon as you get close to that, it vibrates because you've trained the bracelet along with an app to notify you. It vibrates and it kind of makes you that unconscious habit conscious, which is kind of one of the first steps in kind of recovery. So, and obviously it can help jog that, whereas sometimes it's harder to be conscious when it's quite an unconscious act. And I wanted to get her on to talk about that because I'm all for technology boosting therapy, and this podcast is sponsored by the guys at No OCD, the sort of exposure and obsession tracking app. Technology isn't a replacement for therapy, absolutely not. Still 100% advocate therapy, but sometimes other things can boost and improve the effectiveness of therapy. So this may or may not help you. It's up to you to check it out and see what you think. And we obviously don't just talk about the technology, we talk about Aneela's compulsive hair pulling story, talk about why and how she shared and opened up about her disorder. We talked about anxiety and how that can sort of make it worse, and then we go into kind of what else helped in her recovery, where she is now. We talk about the TLC Foundation. So if you are looking for other treatments and therapy, then check out the TLC Foundation, because they're the experts in dermatillomania, trichotillomania, and you'll be able to get more guidance there. We talk about them and how Aneela's company supports that foundation and works with them. And then the general questions, the elevator question, advice for amazing life, etc. So, I enjoyed chatting with Aneela. It's an interesting technology, and it'd be good to see how it progresses and how people find it and use it. So, without further ado, here's Aneela. On the podcast today, I have Aneela Kumar. Aneela is the inspiration for HabitAware, the company behind Keen, a smart bracelet that gently vibrates when you start to pick, pull, or bite to draw your attention to the unconscious habit. Aneela has had trichotillomania for 20 plus years. Welcome to the podcast, Aneela.
Thank you so much for having me. Excuse my hoarse voice. I'm getting a little cold at the start of fall.
That's perfectly fine. We'll push through it. I know what you mean. It's this time of year that it just starts to hit you, doesn't it? The change of temperatures and
exactly.
Okay, great.
And the increased stress now that summer is over.
Absolutely. Okay, so we got to meet in San Fran at the ISDF conference in July. So it was nice to meet you there, and I've got to test the Keen smartwatch or smart bracelet and the app that accompanies it, and we're going to get into that. But first, it'd be good to hear about kind of your story and your experience with trichotillomania.
Yeah, thank you for having me and for allowing me to share my experience. So I've been hair pulling since my early teens. I don't really know exactly when it started, but I do know it was kind of one of my early triggers was some trauma that I had in my life. So a couple of things actually happened. One, looking back, and now this is all looking back now that I kind of a new lens to look through all of this stuff. But one was in early childhood, I moved to a new city and just felt really out of place. And then a couple of years later, my father fell sick with cancer. And so I think all of that stress and negative self-speak that I had in my mind, that I wasn't good enough to be living in this town and with these other kids, just kind of all culminated in me starting to find comfort in pulling out my hair. And it was something that sort of ebbed and flowed as I went through college and joined the workforce, but always something that I hid and covered up with makeup and eyeliner so that no one ever really knew. I mean, I used to have friends that would say, "Oh, your eyebrows look so great today," and I just melt in sadness because I was just like, it's just eyeliner. Like, how can you not see that there's no hair there? So that was when someone commented that, I sort of realized, wow, okay, people don't really notice. I guess everyone is always so much in their own head about what other people are thinking about them that they're not really noticing other people. So that kind of actually helped me start to let go a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's interesting. I mean, that's right. I think so many people, especially at a younger age, are so self-involved. And I don't mean that to sound in a patronizing way, but to an extent, we usually all are, worrying about what other people are thinking about us. So we're never actually thinking about the other person. So what, because I heard on one of the other interviews you did about kind of telling your story and starting to open up to people about, what was going on. I guess, how did you go about doing that? And I guess kind of any advice for anyone else who wants to start to reach out.
Yeah. So the way my story came out, I was pretty much caught. So I don't know if I'm the best person to give advice on how to go about releasing your story.
Yeah.
I was literally caught, getting ready in the morning. My husband of 3 years, he just turned around and looked at me before I could get my makeup on and said, "Where are all your eyebrows?" And in that moment, I literally said, "Oh, you caught me," and just came clean. In terms of tips for other people, I would say just find that one person that you trust, that you love, and that loves you unconditionally, and just, sit them down and say, "Hey, I have this secret to share." And I think if you find that one person who truly loves you unconditionally, the response is simply going to be a hug and a "I'm here for you."
Yeah.
And and I really do believe that, I stumbled across this quote recently: "Secrets make you sick." And I really do believe that harboring this secret of hair pulling or nail biting or skin picking, it really does feed on itself and it makes you sick. And sharing with my husband and going on this journey to create Keen, all of it has come together. Keen, the bracelet, as that awareness piece, and sharing my story, it all sort of played its role in me being where I am today with my trichotillomania, which is, it's under control. It's something that I accept. It's something that's genetic. I know that I'm not going to be entirely pull free, and I think that ideal is actually just, again, self-fulfilling. You get so stressed out trying to stay pull free that at some point you're going to snap. That I'm at a place where I barely pull. I'm at like 99%, and that's success to me. Like, I think that's the other thing, is everyone needs to define success for themselves and not compare not compare yourself to each other. We see people in these Facebook groups saying, a year pull free, 500 days pull free. And then people get sad and say, "Why can't I do it? Why can't I do it?" And it's because you're a different person, because you have different things going on in your life, because, your genetics are different, your hormones are different, and all of this stuff plays a role. So it's best, if you're going to compare your body focused repetitive journey to anyone, it's compare it to the you from a year ago, or compare it to the you from a month ago, or the you from a day ago, but not to other people.
I like that. And I like what you said about defining what success means like to you, because especially with OCD recovery, people get really caught up, and I did once, on this idea of kind of cure, of wanting to be 100% free of it. And now for me, success is, if I can just live my life, chase my goals and live my dreams, it really doesn't matter if OCD is present or not, because that's what's important to me. And obviously it's hard to do those things if you've got full-blown OCD at that time or an episode, but the point is, like, you can get, as you say, 99% of the way there. And if we obsess too much on that 1%, we miss out on doing the things that are meaningful to us because we're too focused on the wrong thing, if that makes sense. So I think, yeah, you're right what you said there. So, whether it's sort of trichotillomania, dermatillomania, or OCD, anxiety usually plays a big part in that. What do you do now, and what did you do to kind of deal with or accept anxiety? Have you got anything that helps you?
So it's only now that I realized that I grew up with anxiety, if that makes sense. Like, it wasn't a word in my vocabulary back then, to know that that's what I was feeling. And I still am, I'm self-diagnosing my anxiety, but to me, it's just a constant jitteriness inside my body and a constant, like, on edginess. And I've stumbled across this concept now of OCD intrusive thoughts. Having, jumped into kind of this world of mental health, and everything that I've read points to I have that as well. But again, it's all self-diagnosed, and it's things that I'm learning to deal with. I have done cognitive behavioral therapy, and without realizing it, I think this doctor of mine did help me through some of those anxiety issues. Simply by pushing me to kind of to test my limits a little bit, to actually go do the things that I was anxious about doing. But it's still something that I deal with. Like, my body just responds to things, and my mind obviously is what's controlling that. Like recently the Hurricane Irma happened, and my sister lives in Miami, and I'm the one freaking out. I'm the one with my mind going on tangents of what's going to happen to them and their house and their things and this and that. And she just calmly said to me on the phone, "Aneela, it's just things. When we get back, we'll deal with it." And I was just like, oh my God, why can't I be like that? Like, why can't my mind just stay calm like that? And it, like, the whole weekend, I was a mess. I was a wreck. I was still living my life here, my thousands of miles away, but I was going through the motions. Like, my mind was just like, is it coming? Is it coming? Is it coming? And the media also just did a number on me, the way that they were constantly feeding that monster inside me, if you will. So anxiety has definitely played a role in my life. It's just up until recently I didn't know that that's what it was called. And the funny thing is, at work, big problems at work, conflicts between clients and employees and partners. All of that stuff would be so much inside me that my coworkers would look at me and say, "How can you be so calm through this all?" And the reality was, I was freaking out. And it was just so ironic and so funny in a way, because my body just took it all in, and somehow I managed to keep up a facade that everything was fine and everything's going to be okay. But in the inside, it was the exact opposite.
Yeah, that's interesting. I agree. I think that there are two large bodies of people with anxiety. The first one is they kind of physically show it, and it's quite obvious they're in distress. And then there's the other type, as you just described, where, from the outside, their world looks perfectly normal and fine, but on the inside, it's kind of chaos. And I've definitely been that latter person. People would comment how I was always smiling, but yet they didn't know what I was kind of going through in my head. So sometimes, the external doesn't always reveal the truth. Okay, so it'd be good to hear about your company HabitAware, how that got started, and then more specifically how what the Keen bracelet is and how it works.
Yeah, sure. So HabitAware is a company started by myself, my husband, and two friends of ours. And the way we got started simply was literally that moment of my husband catching me. Um, and he was very supportive. He started doing his own research to try and understand what the disorder was. And, you know, one day we were just sort of talking and watching TV and just relaxing after a long, hard day at work. And I noticed him gently grabbing my hand. And, he looked at me with that knowing look of like, hey, I see that you're doing this. And I looked at him back and I said, you know what? I wish I just had something that notified me that wasn't you. And, we are technophiles, and we knew that things like this for similar issues kind of existed, and we knew that technology was there. The Apple Watch was on the cusp of just coming out, I think, and the iPhones, the monster computers in our pockets.
Yeah.
We knew that this technology had to be there, and so we started doing additional research, and we couldn't find it. It didn't exist. So we said, let's build it. And we we live here in Minneapolis, which has a big technology startup scene. And I just started asking around to friends, and one of them pointed me towards a hackathon, which is where you get together for a weekend, hack on an idea and see if you can make a product or make that solution to a problem. And so we went to that, and that's where we sort of formed our team, and we built this really janky prototype, and it started to work for me. And just iterated nights and weekends, the four of us taking time to just make this happen. We had a 1-year-old at the time, and we sort of trade off parenting so that we could work on the project. And it was just crazy and fun, and it just felt right. And every time, just the doors kept opening, like knowing that we were doing something that could make a difference in people's lives, like the doors just kept opening. The more people we would tell, the more people they would say, oh, either they had hair pulling or nail biting or skin picking issues, or they had a loved one, or they knew someone that could help us with, different aspects of getting the project off the ground. And then ultimately we were introduced to an accelerator program, and we got to spend 3 months in China learning about, manufacturing, production, marketing, and a lot of these other skill sets that we some of which we had in-house, some of which we didn't, but it just really helped us sort of put the pedal to the metal, and so to speak, in terms of moving our trajectory and quitting our day jobs, if you will, so that we could make this a reality and start helping other people. And so we launched in March. We started shipping this year, and we're helping thousands of people take control through building awareness. And that leads into kind of your next question as to how does Keen work? And so Keen uses a customized proprietary algorithm for gesture detection. So you train Keen for your specific behavior. So whether it's hair pulling of the eyebrows, or pulling on the scalp, or maybe biting your nails, that motion is recorded onto the bracelet. And whenever Keen senses a mathematical match to that hand movement, it sends a vibration. And what that vibration does is it's shifting the behavior from the subconscious to the conscious mind, so you can affect change. So it's building your awareness, and that next step is still up to the user, what they want to do. But if you're wearing the bracelet, you've already said to yourself, I want to change. You've already said to yourself, I want to stop hair pulling. I want to stop skin picking. I want to stop nail biting. I want to stop thumb sucking. I want to stop whatever unwanted, hand-focused, repetitive behavior you want to stop. And that vibration just wakes you up, and you can shift the conversation in your head from pull, pull, pull to, hey, my hands are not where I want them to be. Let me do a short breathing exercise to calm my body, calm my nerves, or let me, grab my squeezy ball or grab my coloring book and keep my hands busy that way, so that you can slowly over time retrain your brain away from these negative behaviors to the point where some of these more positive behaviors become the go-to for that trigger, whatever it is, whether it's lack of sleep or stress or boredom, to the point where you've taken control.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, no, thanks for breaking that down. Do you still use yours now?
I do, yeah. So I use them pretty sparingly, to be honest now. I'm at a point where I do know when my hands are navigating up towards my eyebrows and eyelashes, and I stop myself fairly quickly. It's pretty rare now that I'll like actually pull, but every now and again, like I said, I'm human. I'm not perfect. I do zone out into, being focused on something that I'm doing, and I don't notice sometimes, but I've truly built these awareness muscles, as I call them. I've truly been able to sort of retrain and notice where my hands are way, way, way faster. I mean, it used to be hours where I'd be standing in a bathroom pulling, 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 and now it's literally, oh, I pulled. I see like the 2 or 3 little hairs on my finger, and I say, okay, don't do that. And then I usually cut to like a breathing exercise real quick, or just stretch my arms to just sort of reset my body a little bit.
Okay, yeah, no, thanks for going into that. Are there any type of breathing exercises you could share that may help?
Yeah, so I'm not an expert in breathing exercises. I'm still pretty terrible at them, I think, from a scientific perspective. I'm fairly certain I'm doing them wrong. But my favorite example is actually from a psychologist in New York. His name is Dr. Ali Matu, and he had a video on YouTube a while ago. And the way he explained deep breathing is just basically my favorite. He's kind of was just like, when you breathe in, pretend that you're smelling a delicious slice of pizza, and then when you breathe out, pretend like you're blowing out birthday candles. And that's what I do. Like, I just like that visual effect of, pizza's one of my favorites. So seeing pizza, and then even on the blowing out of the candle, like, it's a celebratory moment. I picture all my friends and family around me and the candle lit up. Like, it's just a good feeling.
Yeah.
So I kind of like incorporating those 2 visual images as I'm breathing in and out, because it just makes me feel good. So that's the technique I use, and I want to give credit to him for bringing that to my attention.
Yeah, no, I like that. Okay, so also I read on the website that you gave a certain amount of money or the profits from the launch or sales, the initial launch, to the TLC Foundation. It'd be good for those with something like Trick or Dermatillomania, if what is the TLC Foundation and how can it help others with body-focused repetitive behaviors?
Absolutely. I'd be remiss not to mention them. They are my savior. TLC Foundation for Body Focused Repetitive Behaviors. Their website is simply bfrb.org. They are the American nonprofit started by a trickster back maybe 20, 30 years ago. And they support the community. They are funding research with the hopeful goal of finding a cure. They put on educational sessions for treatment professionals to get training credits and to learn about these disorders so that they can actually treat them effectively. They do so much. They put out a monthly newsletter with news and tips and strategies, and they do so much for the community. They host an annual conference in April. And it's just, someone in one of the Facebook groups asked, what's the conference like? And I just wrote back, it's kind of like a giant family reunion where there's no fighting. It's like everyone it's a little, it's a close-knit group, and it's a welcoming group. So, if you're new to the community, absolutely feel welcomed. and it's just a super supportive community. And I actually, they are the reason, they are how I figured out that what I had was a thing. Back in my 20s, I finally, out of frustration, just Googled, why am I pulling out my hair? And they came up. They were the first link. And in that moment, like, I literally cried. And I think a lot of people cry because they're like, oh, this is a mental health thing, and this has a name, and there's other people like me. And so they really, like I said, they were my savior. Without knowing what it was, I was just going to continue beating myself up.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. It's great to hear. I'm sure they know that they've had a profound impact on your life and many others. So I'll put a link to the TLC Foundation on the website for those that want to go. And also I'll put links to all of your website and how they can find out more about the Keen bracelet. So a few kind of funnish questions towards the end, because
Yeah.
I don't want to keep you too long. So the elevator question, I don't know if you've heard it before, but you're going up an elevator, you've got 30 seconds with someone who has, let's say, skin or hair picking or pulling. What do you say to them in that 30 seconds?
I would say share. I think that's paramount. Just share, get it out there. Not only does it help the person, I think sharing is super cathartic for an individual, but it helps the community, because the more people that share, the less it's stigmatized. The more people that share, the less other people can say, oh, you're weird, or oh, what's wrong with you. There will be more of an understanding around the issues, in like the global context, so that people's reactions aren't that negative and aren't, ew, what's wrong with you, but oh, how can I help? Or, oh, that's really interesting, where can I find out more? Or, oh, I know someone that has it, can I connect you? To help us get to a point where it's okay to say that we have these issues, and to help us get to a point where these issues are more thoroughly funded by the health administrations of governments, so that we can find that cure.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. And well, this podcast also, for me, recovery is about living an amazing life, whatever that word means to each individual person. But for you, what advice do you have for others who want to live a good life, an amazing life?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you just said, whatever it is to that person, right? So define it, write it down, so that you're seeing, put it on your mirror, so that you're seeing what you want your life to be, and reminding yourself daily. I went through a bout of like depression-ish, maybe. I don't know what it was, but I was really unhappy with where I was working and what I was doing, and I just started writing like what I wanted to be doing instead. And again, it just helped to kind of refocus me and help me choose different decisions to get me there.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, defining what you want out of life. And it's funny enough, I emailed my wife earlier that in a particular area, I need to define what I want out of it. Because at the minute, it's otherwise you're kind of like a boat at sea. And sometimes it's nice just to let that boat be taken by the current. But eventually you need to get out your map and point towards a port and head in that direction.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so another question is, you've got a billboard in Minneapolis. Is that where you are?
Yep.
Yep,
Yeah.
cool. What do you want written on that billboard for the world to see?
Well, the businesswoman in me wants it to be my product, right?
Yeah.
But from a personal standpoint, wow, good question. Trying to think, I think it would be, what I now sort of end all of my emails with, which is love, strength, and awareness. And I think those three words everyone needs in their life, regardless of whether they are pulling or picking. everyone needs love. Everyone needs the strength to face whatever adversity they have in their life. And everyone needs that awareness of mind, body, soul, community to realize that we are all in this together. And, and that's the only path forward for us as humans.
Yeah, I completely agree. And lastly, is there anything else you'd like to share or say that I haven't asked?
Wow, no, I mean, I think you covered everything. A very thorough interviewer, Stuart.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me and allowing me to share my story with your audience. I've been a fan for quite a while, and I try to listen to as many podcasts as I can, so I really appreciate it, and it's kind of exciting to be on yours. So just, thank you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me this opportunity.
No, thank you. And, I appreciate what you guys are doing. And I think technology it kind of has to become an important part of mental health and mental health recovery, and no doubt will do. So it's great to see people like yourself kind of leading the way. And thank you for giving me your time when you're a bit under the weather.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to hopefully seeing you again next year.
Thanks for listening, guys. I really hope you enjoyed my chat with Aneela. Her smartwatch doesn't sponsor this podcast, but she did kindly give us a discount code. So if you did want to buy it, you can get free delivery on the band, and it's the code is OCD Stories -BFRB. That's OCD Stories -BFRB. I'll also put it in the show notes, which you can find at theocdstories.com/podcast. And I will see you next week.